Hi everyone, this is Marianne and welcome to my channel. In this video, I would like to share with you how I created a very basic planner notebook or notebook planner for Jawaid with a week on 2-page layout. It is a planner notebook that I bound myself using one of these double loop wires from the double loop binding system from the brand named Carl. The system itself is called Tosicle, and I have talked about the double loop before in a previous video, and I will link it down below. The first thing I actually did was not to design and print the inserts, but to gather all of the parts together first. I made plastic envelopes that will go into the notebook by taking 3 pieces of those semi-clear plastic folders that I have fashioned into dividers from my own Filofax Savannah, and I showed that in a video which I will link down below. I wanted this notebook planner to be all-purpose. It has to be something that Jawaid can use as a catch-all for receipts, loose papers, and notes, and even cash. I sized the plastic envelopes to be exactly A5 sized, and I just used a blank A5 sheet as a template for cutting down the transparent envelopes to the right size. The envelopes will be top opening and with a flap closure. The semi-clear folders that I'm working with are already closed on 2 sides, so I used those sides for the bottom and the outside edges of the envelopes that I wanted to make. The open side on the inside edge will be closed by the double loop binding, and the top will have the flap closure. I made 3 of these. Then I took my stack of A5 sized paper and then I just lined the paper stack up with the envelopes that I made just to make sure that they fit together and have more or less the same dimensions. Then for the covers of the notebook planner, I took the covers of an old black clear book that I found lying around inside a drawer. I just cut those down to A5. The clear book used to be coil bound, and that's why they have holes in that side that you can see right here. I used the same A5 paper as a template for cutting. And then I went back to the plastic envelopes that I just made and refined the flaps a bit. I used a pair of scissors to sort of miter the flaps or taper down the sides of the flaps so that they won't be too square. I think the flaps that are tapered look better. And then I took a strip of black elastic. I think I bought this from a textile store, but it must have been a long time ago. I used a pencil to mark the place on the cover where the metal eyelets would go, and these metal eyelets would be the ones to hold the elastic in place. This step actually took a little bit more time than the other steps because I didn't know how to attach an elastic to a notebook cover with a metal eyelet, so I did some practice. I took that part of the old covers where the holes for the coil binding used to be and saw that those holes were exactly 5 millimeters in diameter, which was the exact same diameter of the hole needed for the metal eyelets that I will be using. These eyelets, by the way, are very old. I bought them years ago on Etsy. There were no local Facebook planner groups yet at the time. I think it must have been around 2013. And the hardest part in this step really was how to make the elastic sit together with a metal eyelet inside the hole in such a way that that elastic will be held in place but won't fray. The elastic, of course, must have a very small slit or hole inside of it because the eyelet will have to go through it and through the hole in the cover, and the danger of placing a slit or a hole in the elastic is that the very fine elastics that are inside of it might come out of the weave, which will make the elastic not work at all. Finally, after many tries, I have decided that the best way to do this was to place the slit in the elastic in the part where there are no elastics inside the weave, and the slit has to be very small. As you can see, it was not easy easing the neck of the eyelet through the slit. The situation was that the neck of the eyelet is already quite small, 5 millimeters in diameter, and also very short, which made it a little bit difficult to handle. And the slit in the elastic was very small, and the hole that was punched in the cover was also just 5 millimeters in diameter, very small, and I had to place everything in such a way that the eyelet would sort of seal the slit of the elastic and hide the slit completely, or hide the edge of the slit completely. It took a while, but I was able to do it. When I was ready to do that on the actual covers, I discovered that the pencil marks that I initially placed did not really consider the fact that my eyelet maker cannot punch holes that far into the plastic, so I just marked new points that were closer to the outside edge of the cover that I was making. So I punched out the holes and I did the thing with the elastic and the eyelets, making sure that I pulled the elastic just enough to create the right tension that will keep the notebook planner closed, but not too tight as to warp the planner. After I have decided on the right tension, I just did the same thing on that end of the eyelet with the cutting of the tiny slit and then the placing of the eyelet and then finally the sealing down of the eyelet. After that, I printed out the entire week on 2 pages file that I created on the A5 sized paper, and now here are all of the finished parts of the notebook planner. The front cover, and here is Jawaid's logo for a restaurant that he wants to start and is actually the reason why he needs this notebook planner. And then I also pasted several sheets of ruled paper for him to use when taking down notes or making lists. And then here is a sample of the week on 2 pages layout that I made. I have laid it out so that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are on the left page, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are on the right page. The reason for this is so that he can fold the notebook over on itself when he's writing on it while he's standing up or without a table, which can sometimes happen when he's talking to suppliers or has to suddenly write down something while he's standing in front of the stove cooking. There are more ruled sheets after the weekly planner pages, and then lastly there are the 3 semi-clear envelopes that we just made, and then we have the back cover with the elastic. And now we get to the last step, which is the binding. I used the puncher of the Carl double loop binding system, and I just punched out about 3 to 4 sheets at a time to make sure that the edges of the punched holes remain crisp and clear. When I came to the plastic envelopes, I had to cut away a tiny part of the flap to make way for the holes that have to be punched in there for the double loop binding. And finally, I punched holes into the back cover, the one with the elastic that's held in place by the metal eyelets. To bind the entire thing together, I had to cut the double loop wire down to the proper length. These standard ones are for A4, but we are working with an A5 size notebook planner which is smaller, so I counted the number of holes in the stack and then counted the number of loops that I should retain in the wire and then cut off the excess number of loops. Then I placed the double loop wire into the holder that is designed for it, and then I placed the back cover in front of the front cover, which is how this should be done. I explained this in my previous video about the double loop wire binding system. And then I placed all of the punch sheets in the proper order into the wire, a few at a time. And then finally, I closed the double loop wires using the same contraption right here. That is the last step in the making of this notebook planner. All that remained for me to do was to check if the notebook planner can be handled in the way that I think Jawaid needs to handle it, like if it closes properly with the elastic that I placed, and if the pages can be turned without catching, and if they can be turned quickly, and then trying to fold the notebook back under itself and then accessing the envelopes at the back, and then finally closing the notebook and placing the elastic closure in place. The planner starts on May 1, 2018 and goes all the way to the end of the year. I put some finishing touches on the entire thing, such as small white round stickers on the envelopes so that he can label them if he wants. And then I also placed a few sheets of colored note paper inside one of the envelopes so that he can have something to write on and leave with someone else without having to tear off paper from the notebook planner. I also added this transparent sticky note, which looks like this when already stuck to a page. And then the other 2 envelopes I just left empty. And that is the basic notebook planner that I made for Jawaid. I hope I was able to give you some helpful ideas if you're thinking of doing something similar to this. And if you have any questions, please just leave me a comment and I will get to them as soon as I can. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye!